Mrs. Mechthild Wörsdörfer, to discuss with ITRE committee members the energy winter preparedness. Once again, I would like to thank the Deputy Director General for being with us today for this exchange of views, focused mainly on the energy winter preparedness plan presented in July. We didn't have the chance to discuss in the committee, and you know well that the Council, the energy ministers, agreed on amended version already on 26th of July. But I would like to thank the European Commission for the informal briefings offered to the Parliament technical staff at the time of the discussions and adoption of this measure. Also, I had the chance to discuss with the colleagues from European Commission, from DGNR, and to understand exactly what was the initial intention and what are the final decisions of the Council of the 26th of July. Of course, I'm sure that we'll be extremely interested to hear from Mrs. Wörsdörfer something about the emergency tool for the electricity market the Commission intends to present in the coming days, as well as on its longer-term work on electricity market design, because there is a huge expectation to do something on the electricity price. In my opinion, the marginal price methodology is obsolete. We have to redesign, to rethink, because the markets are here to serve the consumers. And if the consumers are not happy, then we should intervene. But of course, let's see what European Commission intends. We have approximately 1 hour. At 10 o'clock, we schedule the votes. We have a full list of interventions. I'm afraid we cannot take catch the eye. And I go directly to the Deputy Director General, Mrs. Wörsdörfer, to ask her kindly to make the opening statement.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Busai, Mr. Chair, and good morning to all members of the European Parliament. I'm pleased to be here right after summer for those who had a short summer, and we are back, and I'm pleased to be back and give you an update on what is an important element of our winter preparedness. Obviously, the situation remains very, very critical, and from the European Commission side, we are working full speed now again, since months, but now again, on looking at the different aspects of security of supply and energy prices. So I will concentrate now my presentation on the winter preparedness package. You got a briefing from my colleague just before summer on the technical briefing, but I'm pleased to do it here now in the Parliament. So the situation remains quite critical. There is a risk of disruption, which is very strong, even getting stronger, as already half of our member states are affected totally or partially by disruptions. And as a result of that, 13 member states are either partially or fully cut off from Russian gas. And as you know, Nord Stream 1 is since yesterday, 31st of August, for 3 days in maintenance. So there is no gas flows from Russia to Germany and the rest of Europe since yesterday on Nord Stream 1. And we are also looking at the impact of that. There's one good news in all that. That is the storage, the gas storage filling. The EU average is 80%. I remember we had a discussion also on our proposal on the gas storage. It was a fast-track procedure within the Parliament. We're very happy. And since yesterday, we are at 80% average EU filling. Some member states are above. Some are still at between 60 and 70, but in the transit trajectory. So this is good news to help us prepare for this winter. We have also continued on the repower, which remains the key strategy of the European Commission, with its part on diversification. So we are really diversifying away from Russia, and by either we have higher LNG and higher pipeline imports from alternative suppliers, US, Norway, Algeria, Azerbaijan, and we are looking and exploring the appropriate legal tools to make joint purchasing happening. Then also, not to forget, I will highlight it, that we are also accelerating renewables deployment is a very, very important aspect, and energy efficiency. So these key, we come back to that in Parliament very, very soon on the EED and the RED II. This is top priority, even more so now, to have ambitious and accelerated work. But it's not enough to look at the supply side. That's why we want to complement the work, and we need to reduce gas demand, and we need to start making more savings as soon as possible, not only to increase the injections in storage, and more generally to strengthen our preparedness for the next winter. That's why the European Council asked the Commission to propose an EU contingency plan, and we adopted on 20th of July this new Council regulation and also the plan of demand reduction, which was agreed in rapid time again on the 26th of July and entered into force on the 8th of August. The new regulation is about orderly and coordinated reduction of gas consumption across the EU to prepare for the upcoming winter. If we reduce our gas demand proactively, this allows us to avoid rushed or unilateral decisions when it is too late. It is possible to plan the savings in the most efficient way and minimizing the impact as much as possible on people and business. And if we do it now, the impact on GDP is relatively smaller if we save now. We have proposed a two-stage approach, so preemptive action now and the Union alert. We asked member states to reduce demand voluntarily by 15% starting from the 1st of August till end of March, which is the gas winter. It's based on calculations we did with NSOG and other institutions, so that the 15% is according to already quite higher than average winter, colder than average winter, what is needed to reduce demand. If the reduction is not enough, and we are monitoring that closely, we expect first reports from member states in October, and we are in obviously daily contact with the member states to look at the measures. But if it's not enough, there is the possibility to trigger a Union alert, which is a mandatory obligation for the member states to meet the 15% gas reduction target. It will be the member states who are in control over the triggering of an eventual Union alert. That was decided at the Energy Council on the 26th of July. So it's not the Commission, it's a decision and the Union alert can be only triggered or activated by the Council as decided on the 26th of July. It's very difficult to predict the winter. It depends on weather and what are the volumes of alternative gas supplies and so on. But this is an important, very important step. And I think we need to be clear that such a proposal has been adopted in the Council in record time by 27 member states is really, we have never seen that. So there's a solidarity to the reduce 15%. And that corresponds to the 45 BCM of gas needed to be saved, as I said, since beginning of August until the end of March. The Council endorsed the target level, but they have introduced some flexibility for some member states. It's clear that some member states are more hit, those who are closer to Russia, Central and Eastern European countries, or those who have a higher gas share. And that's why there are some exemptions in the rules which were agreed in the Council, for example, for those who are not well interconnected or islands, Portugal, Spain, Ireland, but also others. So that was the flexibility given to the specific situation of the member states, but overall we are in line of the 15% target, and that we achieved. It's based on also guidelines which we adopted in addition to the regulation. So these guidelines help member states and support member states in reaching the 15% of reduction. And we have already started to identify some good practices from member states who have started to implement it. either by measures to cut lights or some other heating proposals in offices. And we see this is a development not only in Spain and some other parts, but negotiations are ongoing also in many of the member states, and we are in close contact with them, and we are sharing those good practice of market-based and non-market-based demand-side measures that can be taken in order to free up gas volumes already today. The Parliament was not formally involved because it's an Article 122, which is the regulation basis. But we, of course, and my Commissioner is fully committed to inform and continue to inform the Parliament. So thank you very much for your attention. I close here, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. Thank you for keeping us individually updated and even that we would like always to have a role for the Parliament, as the Parliament is the result of the direct vote of the citizens. Of course, it was a very emergency situation, and we also see very positively the fact that the Council, the energy ministers, mobilized quick during the summer. Let's see how many member states will really implement the voluntary plan, because it's not clear yet for us. And let's see if the alert mechanism will be triggered at the end of the year. Those who are not started to reduce consumption, how they could fulfill the 15% reduction, because it will be very challenging. But maybe these questions will come also from colleagues. Once again, thank you for presenting the plan, and thank you for keeping us informed and discussing all the details with the ITRE Committee of the European Parliament. I go now to the coordinators round. 2 minutes for each intervention, please. And I start with the EPP coordinator, Mr. Christian Ehler.
Thank you very much, and welcome back after the summer. For the EPP group, the solidarity with countries which are most dependent on Russia remains one of the crucial elements. And you had been referring to solidarity, to quick decisions, but at the same time, we should not forget to look forward. I mean, if you look to the investment package, there is not a single transnational energy project. There's not a signal to invest in a gas pipeline between the Iberian Peninsula and Western Europe. There's no single transnational attempt to send price signals by investments to the markets. And that's worrisome. That doesn't fit together. These 500 billions are almost wasted for the fight we are fighting right now. And there is no signal from the member states, and there is no critical reflection from the Commission so far on how the money has been spent. There's a lot of money not spent yet. There will be a lot of member states not being able to spend all the money. And we really should look forward to investments, transnational investments in hydrogen infrastructure, in hybrid infrastructure, gas and hydrogen, in ports, in supply chains. If we don't send these price signals, the markets will react like they react. They panic, they price in, and we are confronted with a social disaster as a consequence of the crisis, which is unforeseen yet. So, as the chair had been rightly saying regarding the solidarity agreement, I would like to know if there are any more agreements or just 8 countries covered by the 6 agreements so far, including between Germany and Austria, Estonia and Latvia, Italy and Slovenia. And I think in more general terms, I mean, that is also your perspective. I mean, what we see is that we are lack of deepening of the energy market in Europe. It's still a disaster. I mean, we are coming from the early 2000s, where most of the legislation had been based on environmental law, because we didn't have that in the treaties. But so far, we didn't see any signals of the deepening of the energy market in Europe. And it's individual initiatives between Portugal now doing contracts with the port of Rotterdam to deliver hydrogen. but there is no coherent strategy. And my basic question in terms of investment and what we could do is what you consider to be possible to use the 500 million we spent in the investment plan in terms of deepening the infrastructure, building up the infrastructure, leading from gas infrastructure to then the needed hydrogen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The SND coordinator, Mr. Danica.
Thank you so much, dear Chair. It's nice to see all of you, dear colleagues. Thank you so much, General Director. So, extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. Otherwise, we'll be witnessing the so-called funeral of the EU economy this winter. Just put it this way. So, my question to you is, are you ready to take some concrete measures in order to prepare this winter, so to be better prepared? Like taxation of the windfall profit of the market operators who have excessive benefits from the emergency situation, and to use these resources to better address the vulnerable consumers and the SMEs. 2, suspending transactions on the spot market in case of excessive price fluctuation. General Director, the spot market was designed to address 10% of the total market for gas, for instance, and now it's 50%. So why we should accept that 50% on the so-called spot market, which is based on the speculation and total lack of transparency, it is still acceptable? And why do you accept to have long-term contracts based on the prices on this very spot market with no transparency, no full disclosure of who are the shareholders, what are the prices, what is their acquisition prices, and what is the consumer prices? Number 3, why you don't have a commodity exchange for gas, for instance, and why we don't link the gas price with oil, as it used to be? Why? Because the fluctuation of the oil is not so on the excessive limits, and that will calm the prices on the gas? That will be another question. Imposing limits on the reselling commodities, a number of intermediaries. Is it true that on this chain between those making the acquisition of the gas and the consumer, there can be as much as 10 intermediaries, just to be sure that the prices, they increase from, let's say, 100 euros, the price from Norwegian gas, to 3,000 euros? And who is making that money? From 100 to 3,000 euros. Number 5. Why? I don't have 3 minutes.
Please, the time is, but please, Mr. Nica, the last question.
The last one. And introducing a cap based on the profit margin. I think that if you make like 10%, which is the average in the EU economy, it will be also acceptable for the energy companies across the whole chain. And that will be very much welcome by all of us. And thank you so much. Sorry, I thought it's 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nica. No, the questions were very interesting, and thank you. On behalf of Renew Group, we have Mr. Grudler. He's remotely and no translation, so please.
Don't worry, I will speak in English. Dear Chair, dear Mrs. Wörsdörfer, it's nice to see you again. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to focus my time on energy prices, which is the biggest internal crisis the EU is facing today. It affects our industry, our growth, and especially our citizens who are worried for their bills. I would like to thank the Commission for the massive work done since the energy market outbreak. But today, the EU needs to act now on the electricity prices. On the short term, we need to develop an energy shield to cap the electricity price. President von der Leyen mentioned this option, and I hope it will be included in your proposal. Will you also propose concrete actions for the longer term? For instance, the decoupling of electricity and gas prices. Also, we need a strong solidarity between member states. while Gazprom has decided to stop supplying gas to NG, for example, Hungary just signed an agreement with them. How to ensure that the EU will act collectively to solve this crisis and get rid of the Russian gas? Will there be actions for the Commission if this solidarity is not respected? Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Grudler. I would like now to invite, on behalf of the Greens, Mr. Bloss.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all again, even though it was a difficult summer, and I think it will be even more difficult fall and winter. I think we not only now have a capacity problem, we really have a price problem. It's impossible for citizens to pay 500 euros, maybe some are even 1,000 euro more per month for energy. So we really have to focus on this, and at the same time, fossil companies make huge profits. So I really support also what Mr. Nika said in terms of windfall profit tax, and I wonder if you are planning something also in this direction also for the European level. Looking to the next Energy Council, I think it is important to understand also that the common purchases platform is not really working, because still member states, companies in Europe are trying to secure gas for themselves and push the prices up. So we need to have some mandatory common purchases for Europe to bring prices down, and to cut the price down, and that's kind of like a buyer's cartel, what is needed, because we see that the prices are so much higher, for instance, than in Asia, that this is basically a bubble. So are you planning something in this direction? Thirdly, as I said, for citizens it's impossible to pay for the energy price for some of them. I think we need something like a basic contingent of cheaper energy for citizens, and everything that is above this basic contingent can be expensive as it is right now, but this has to be ensured that no house will be cold in winter because they cannot afford it anymore. Are you planning something like this? Will you plan to put a moratorium on gas and energy cuts? And lastly, I think it's important that even if you put this rule, I think 177, that you really inform the Parliament, keep us informed regularly, and also in a structured manner. So I wonder how you will do that, because in the last things I only found out via the press. So it's important to keep us involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Wörsdörfer, and welcome back to colleagues. Over the past months, the EU adopted a twofold strategy to deal with the gas shortage, emerging focused on the gas storage regulation and the gas reduction plan. On paper, the strategy seems to be working. According to the most recent data, European gas deposits are 80% full on average, with some member states being even ahead scheduled in the filling process. In combination with the 15% gas reduction plan, gas deposits are expected to avert a winter supply crisis and still have gas left after the 2023 winter. However, these measures alone, when necessary, will not be sufficient to avoid surging costs for businesses and households, and avert the risk of an economic recession, especially in member states most affected by the lack of gas exported by traditional suppliers. Dramatic bills per household are expected for electricity and gas in 2023, and for SMEs, bills have skyrocketed up to 500% if compared to last year values. Such a scenario means that besides reducing consumption and keeping deposits filled, a new level cap on gas prices is needed, as already requested by some member states, while the EU must support new
domestic drilling ventures, as well as the building of new infrastructure to ensure the fast replacement of the missing gas that is urgently needed by our industry and consumers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paolo. On behalf of ECR, Mr. Tobisowski, please.
Panie Przewodniczący, Szanowna Pani Dyrektor, Szanowni...
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director, for your statement. I'd like to draw your attention to a certain issue. 2 years ago, in the autumn and winter, Commissioner Simpson and the representatives of DG Energy stated that the gas market in the EU was complete. The infrastructure is there, and all we need to do, they said back then, is to complete a certain project. Now it turns out we have no interconnectors, we have no common market in place, and we only have poorly connected islands, so to speak. Now we have to suddenly and urgently build interconnectors and other infrastructure. But now we are facing an unprecedented crisis. And this crisis is still developing. It's a dynamic situation. The prices of gas are going up, and we have not yet come to the period when we need to heat our houses. So the European Commission, what are they recommending now? We have a problem with ETS. The price here is 80 euros. So are we receiving any support, or is this current situation getting worse? So we need to suspend ETS. It is our committee who appealed for the withdrawal of financial institutions from this system. Time is not on our side. So a priority now should be to make it possible for member states to shape the energy mix according to the resources that these member states have at their disposal. Since the common gas market does not function, does not exist in reality, then the member states should be able to make use of the resources that they have at their disposal, because these resources can fill the gap left by the shortages of gas. We need to make sure the citizens and the member states are secure for the winter. We need to provide security for the European Union in an effective way. We need to make the right diagnosis and take the right decisions.
List on behalf of the left, Mrs. Hirarego.
Sí, muchas gracias. Bueno, yo le agradezco mucho.
Thank you very much for the information that you've given us. Your proposal at least outlines a scenario of savings and upfronts a material reality. We need gas and we don't have it. It's possible to change the model, however, and we can adopt a planned strategy to reduce demand. But at the moment, it doesn't look like there's a balanced or fair approach. I think it's necessary to accelerate a fair transition and also put an end to the process of marginal pricing. We need to understand the strong dependence that we have on fossil fuels at the moment, and all of this has been exacerbated. At the same time, it's necessary for the Commission to recognize its responsibility in this energy model, which has serious flaws, and it's allowed energy oligopolies to develop in a sector of such vital importance without appropriate controls, allowing profits to explode and costing consumers horrendous amounts. We're all aware of what's happening here. It's very important, essential indeed, to plan saving measures. At the same time, we need a long-term plan, and that requires an underpinning of common sense and fair and sustainable priorities. Obviously, all of this is only possible with public oversight and a clear planned strategy based on the public interests and recognizing the limits of the planet. This proposal is still socially and environmentally unfair. So my question is it a good idea to turn to fossil fuels after a summer full of climate events? Would it not be appropriate for the Commission to establish mechanisms for public oversight and transparency to identify the genuine costs? 36 million people are looking at not being able to heat their homes, and will there be measures established in winter to avoid that figure accelerating?
I go now to the Deputy Director General to answer to all these questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your very important and relevant questions. I will try to answer them maybe in blocks. So first of all, we have done indeed a lot. I mean, the whole Repower EU strategy covers a number of areas where we are continuing to work. And as I already said, we have a number of already fast-track measures, the storage filling and now the demand reduction for gas are really key example, historically key examples that we work in solidarity with our EU member states and they are ready to implement them. So I think we have set up also the energy platform. We are working on the joint purchasing. We have set up different regional groups. There was one in Bulgaria. There were one in the northwest Europe. I chaired the one in the southwest Europe, and there are also others in the Central Eastern European countries, which in these regional groups we try to really bundle the demand, look at what is necessary, and then now prepare to do it jointly. So I think this is something we continue and are ready to engage also with the Parliament. And we have done also quite a lot, and that's part of Repower on the savings side, which is important, and on the internal market. So I think we are continuing implementing it. There is a crisis now. I think we are all extremely aware, and the energy prices, both gas and electricity, bills are high we have never seen before. There is speculation, there is uncertainty in the market, and that's why we are looking even more intensively right now what else needs to be done, which we need to present and discuss with you. Just coming first back to some of the questions on interconnectors, we had the discussion on 10E, where we concluded in a long trialogue, like trialogues always are, that we don't finance any more gas pipelines, but that we concentrate on the electricity. With Repower EU and the situation we are now, we identified, however, some bottlenecks where we are looking into it, what's needed to really connect everyone in the new situation where gas flows are not from east to west, but west to east. So we are implementing that, including looking at hydrogen. This is the future, so we are combining it and looking where it's needed, future gas, which need to be hydrogen ready or hydrogen dedicated infrastructure. So that's where we are, and we have 6 solidarity agreements with 8 countries right now, and we are encouraging countries to step that up much more. As I said, and a lot of question about the crisis right now, there is more to come. We have an extraordinary, or the presidency announced an extraordinary council of energy ministers next Friday already. So for that, there is not much we can prepare except some factual updates, and we will listen to our member states, what they are doing in gas and electricity prices and what more. In the meantime, as requested by the European Council already, we are looking at price caps and what is possible, and we have some technical seminars and exchanges. So there are different forms of price caps. For example, for import of gas from Russia, there are price caps within the EU, that the wholesale price caps or the retail market, retail price caps, which member states are already applying. So we are looking at all possibilities, full speed, and that is what we want to achieve, also what is the feedback from member states on all these questions. In particular on electricity prices, which we are also looking at short-term measures, emergency measures. How can we avoid these huge bills? How can we protect vulnerable consumers, but not only any more vulnerable consumers, but also middle-income households or industries? We are hearing that as you do even more, what we can do here. So there will be work, or there is work on emergency measures on electricity prices. There might be also something on demand reduction for electricity. We speak today about demand reduction for gas. It's obviously very different. The gas and market and electricity markets are very different. You have gas storage, you have electricity peaks or daily, but no storage. So it's a different type of action which we are looking at. And medium to long term, as it was asked, we are looking at our electricity market design. It had worked well over the last decade. We have marginal pricing. We are looking at option to optimize it, to reform it, but that takes time. I can't, or the President von der Leyen couldn't promise that for tomorrow, but it's for sure that we will do a proper impact assessment, stakeholder consultation involving Parliament full, and look at all options with an open mind, because we are in a very, very different situation now than we were before. So all this is in the making, and I'm sure we are coming back. Repower EU already mentioned that there is a possibility to look at windfall taxes and windfall prices to look at the benefits. This is also in the pipeline, what we are looking at. So I stop here. There's a lot of work ongoing, and I'm sure we are also coming back.
Yes, indeed. We have the second round now. As always, shorter interventions, 1 minute, please, colleagues. And I start the round with the intervention of President Buzek, EPP.
Thank you very much, colleague. Thank you, Madam Director General, for your information. We should cooperate in excellent way, both our institutions. So my first question is about that, because while working on the storage regulation, the European Parliament was pushing for some saving measures, and Council and Commission said it is not necessary, it is not needed at all. So we were rather surprised. Both institutions just few weeks later agreed exactly on such measures. And I would like to ask you if this regulation on gas reduction is to be extended for another year. It will be done through the ordinary legislative procedure or in the same way. We would like to be as close as possible in the future. A second question, very short. 15%, where does this percentage come from? A few days ago, we heard that member states already achieved the target of 80% in gas storage. Congratulations, fantastic. European Parliament expected 90%. We're fighting for that. Is another case. So isn't this 15% target also too conservative, maybe? Thank you.
Thank you, President. Mr. González Casares, SND.
Gracias, Presidente. Gracias, señora Wörsdörfer, por la presentación.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's important to recognise that we've been making warnings about this over the last year. The Commission was dragging its feet, and now we find ourselves in the situation we're in. We need responses that meet the seriousness of the challenge. The final decision adopted in July, I believe, is the right one. But I want to ask you whether the Commission has an estimation of what percentage of savings can be made by member states over this time. If we look at the design of the electricity markets, for a long time our group has been putting forward proposals to decouple prices, to favour and promote renewables. Now we're told that these issues are going to be taken into account for the structural reform, which will take time. But what about the emergency reform? One thing I want to know is whether ACER has changed its position against the reform, which has been a position that has been static for months while the situation has changed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Petersen, the Vice Chair of the Committee.
Thanks so much, Christian, and thanks so much, Mrs. Wörsdörfer, for you being with us today. I think we all realize how serious a situation we're in, and I think we all acknowledge and praise the hard work done by you and your colleagues in the Commission. Now, just a reflection on the point made by our colleague Ila previously on the need for deepening the markets and cross-border issues. I think it's an extremely important point to make, and we'll have to follow up on this. Now, on the winter preparedness, I think it's extremely important that we provide incentives for member states to actually make savings, because if we end up in a situation where we only subsidize further consumption, we will not get where we want to get to ensure full independency from Russia. And just a reminder to this House and this committee and ourselves, we have important files on the table this fall on Efficiency Directive and on Buildings Directive that we have to ensure high ambitions on these files in order to ensure, namely, the independency from Russia. So we also have our own responsibility in this. On the electricity market issues, I'd like to push you a little, Mechthild, on timeline on this, because obviously this is of critical importance. So you're referring to an impact assessment. I guess the outcome of this depends on what you're assessing. So I'd be curious to have a little further information on this. I find it important, sorry, just to mention the stability issues. I mean, we have investors out there wanting to spend billions on projects. They need stability, so that has to be factored in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morten. Mrs. Carvalho, Vice Coordinator of EPP.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Director General. Thank you for your intervention. However, I was a bit disappointed with your intervention. We live, as you said, in times of crisis, and we need important emergency and also structural reforms. And I had a lot of hope with the words of President von der Leyen in the beginning of this week. So I was expecting that you give us more, at least the line that you, because the President has said you are working, Commissioner is already working. So the main lines that you are working, how Parliament is going to be involved, and the timetable, because some of the measures need to be urgent. So if you could share these details with us, I would appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Paulus, the Greens.
Sorry, I have to search for the button. Thank you, Morten, for your words. I couldn't agree more. On prices, I think capping prices in wholesale or retail markets will just lead to taxpayers' money being funneled into fossil gas producers' already bulging pockets, as price is simply inelastic in a time of limited supply. And right now we're more or less keeping the prices up in competition with Asia, where the markets are reacting to what Europe is doing, of course. I would like to know which options does the Commission mull over concerning the reform of the electricity market, because I do agree that marginal pricing is not a suitable market design in a system which is dominated by renewables, because prices will become negative in times of high supply, and hydrogen plants covering the residual load in times of low supply will presumably only run less than 1,000 hours a year. So they would need extremely high prices to cover their fixed costs, and I don't think that this is sustainable. But I would caution against going back to a regulated system, because this would disincentivize investment in renewables and storage and might even hamper the transition, as you can observe in Texas right now, where a new gas plant is built instead of expanding the grid.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Geyer, SND.
Danke, Herr Präsident.
Thank you, Chairman. The colleagues have put some pressing questions when it comes to the Commission's preparation for the Energy Summit, and Mrs. Wörsdörfer, I would endorse those questions. Now, I understand that you can't tell us about all of your plans. The President of the Commission will do that, but please give us an indication of which direction you're heading in. I think that's something we would all welcome. I think there's just a couple of points I would like to add to the arguments adduced by my colleagues. We're not at war, luckily. On the 1st of September, is the day when Nazi Germany invaded Poland and started the Second World War. And I think it's good that we can sit here together peacefully and work on solutions together. But our economy, of course, is affected by the consequences of war. And given that that's the case, we need to give some thought to how we can react to these measures. And I think Mrs. von der Leyen was very courageous, but it was still a bit vague. So I think we need to have some greater clarity. Now, we need to make it through winter, of course. And if I hear about the lights being switched off because of gas imports, the lack thereof, but we also, of course, need to prepare for the winter of 23-24.
ID.
ICR. Hij hebben naar de slot. Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Dutch. Ik wil de collega's hier die volledig hebben ingezet op het...
There are colleagues who insist on investing in unreliable energy sources such as wind and solar, and who've been moving away from reliable sources, and that the crisis we're in are the result of those choices, your choices. And now you want to save gas for a safe winter. That's a report that was leaked, and it has a recommendation to stop the phasing out of nuclear energy. And they also say that we should shift towards nuclear energy to reduce our gas consumption. But question one, why is the Commission ceded to the ideological pressure from a minority, and why has the recommendation been removed from the definitive version that was published of the report? It's time for the Commission to shoulder its responsibilities vis-à-vis the citizens and to stop phasing out nuclear energy. Then solidarity. Solidarity plays a key role in the energy community in the EU. And the essence of the regulation, save gas for a safer winter, is underpinned by that. But if Germany takes the questionable decision to close its last 3 reactors, I don't want to have to explain to the Dutch why, out of solidarity, they should be paying more for their energy.
Mrs. Klotz, please.
Szanowni Państwo, zapaść na rynku energetycznym jest...
Thank you. The failure of the energy market is a financial problem, primarily. We have tools to deal with it. We should immediately freeze ETS prices to save the producers of energy and the entire industry. The European Commission, it seems, prefers to freeze the citizens rather than admit to a mistake. It seems that the worst problem of Europe in the face of this crisis is the arrogance of Europe's leaders. In the Parliament and in the European Commission, there is no political will to make an effective correction of the evidently wrong energy policy. We are like the Titanic, which is heading full steam ahead, facing a catastrophe. The difference is that the captain of the Titanic did not know what's in front of him. You, however, know exactly what we are facing, but you don't want to correct the course at all in the name of ambitions. But this will be a price that will have to be paid by millions of Europeans. So do we need a catastrophe for the European leaders to wake up?
The Vice CPP.
Thank you so much. I have one short question on energy efficiency and one on nuclear. On energy efficiency, is the Commission considering measures to boost behavioral changes in Europe for all citizens, even more than already touched upon and initiated? That could be support tools for member states, but also EU-wide campaigns, so that also the European institutions are reaching out to SMEs and families and helping them to do what they really want to do. On nuclear, we are currently see how the use of coal is rising significantly, and we see how price caps in some countries result in increasing economic support for highly emitting power plants. At the same time, we see an extreme shortage of nuclear energy from France. What opportunities do we have in Europe to increase the energy from nuclear on a short-term basis? Thank you so much. Yes, I did it.
Thank you so much, Pernille. Thank you for being extremely on time. I have 4 requests for Catch the Eye, but I said at the beginning that it will be very challenging. We still have some time. If you can do it in 30 seconds, just one question, then, but please, it is a little bit. So Mrs. Spiraki, Mr. Kelly, Patricia Toia, Mrs. Toia, and Mr. Kaf. Mrs. Kutajar. 30 seconds, Mrs. Spiraki first. One question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear Madam Director General, I would like to elaborate further to Mr. Morten Patterson's question on the issue of the pricing model, because we are focusing the danger of political fragmentation and instability in our countries due to the populists. So I would like to ask you, how fast do you go on the issue of the impact assessment? What kind of assessment will take place? And how fast you will implement the new model?
Thank you. Patricia Toia, prego.
Una sola domanda.
Just one very quick question, and I can endorse what colleagues have said, but why? There's not a great deal of transparency when it comes to how prices are set. You yourself said there's little transparency. Now, for months, we've been asking for the Commission to tell us about this, and we've also asked other commissioners to speak to this, and there's not really a lot of information forthcoming. Now, if the lack of transparency is affecting families and our industry, we have a duty to lift the veil and look what's beneath.
Please.
Much appreciated, Mr. Chairman. Compliments to the Commission on their efforts to try and alleviate the situation which we find ourselves in. But I just want to ask one question. In my country, we are heavily dependent on gas, but the policy is it's great to use the gas once it doesn't come from Ireland. And are the Commission aware of the fact that we have a policy of keep it in the ground, that we have vast reserves of gas off the west coast, off the Corrib and Barry Row, but because of this policy introduced a number of years ago, we are not utilising it, and this, I think, is unfair to the European Union, who are doing everything they can to source gas from around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean. Josiane, please.
Thank you. I would like to elaborate a bit on about the industrial side of things and the effects of possible cuts of energy consumption on the price of basic goods. We know that the unbearable energy costs that have been spiraling in the past months are leading to many undertakings either going bankrupt or having a difficult situation or increasing their prices, and at the end of the day there's a domino effect with skyrocketing prices for basic goods. This is about protecting jobs but also consumer prices, affordable consumer prices, and that's why I'd like to ask if the Commission is ready to face this possible domino effect and which are the concrete actions it envisages to undertake in order to protect enterprises' income statement but also the purchasing power of European consumers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The very last, Mr. Kiran Kaf. Kiran.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In a crisis, we must act decisively. And good work has been done under the Repower EU initiative. But we must not delay, we must speed up the clean energy transition. And Morten is right, we need increased ambition on the EPBD. But energy poverty is real and will get worse this winter. So is it not time for an energy crisis fund at EU level to tackle the cost of living and the climate crises, funded from a windfall tax from oil and gas company profits? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. Deputy Director General, really challenging a lot of questions, but the situation is very, very challenging also.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we will have ample occasions to go deeper, and the President von der Leyen will give the 14th of September the State of the Union, and I can assure you there will be a lot on energy, and we will follow up, or we are already preparing and follow up that very, very intensively, and you're very much right. The situation we are right now, both on the gas prices but also electricity price security of supply concern, is of the highest concern and priority in the Commission. So we are coming back to many of those questions, but I will try, obviously, to cover what I can right now. So thank you very much, Mr. Buzek, on all your input and leading on the gas storage and what we can do. The regulation which we proposed on the 20th of July, we had proposed 2 years. The Council decided on 1 year. We have to see what's happening in 1 year, but what more can we do when we maybe are a bit out of the crisis, even though I agree to what was said, it's not this winter, it's the coming winters where we need to cover the situation. But we will involve the Parliament extremely closely, and the question of 15% demand reduction, if it's too conservative, if we have now an EU average of storage of 80%, it's reassuring for this winter, but we can face a cold winter, and we need to continue and have the filling of gas storage in March at a certain percentage, I think it's 40%, to be able for the winter 23-24. So this is a continuous exercise where we need to look at, and that's why we have a voluntary demand reduction target of 15%, but if needed, we go to the mandatory. And that's why the continuous efforts for the winters to come is needed. Very rightly so, a number of you mentioned repower and the need to keep the ambitious of EPPD, EED and RED II, and we are very, very ready to engage with you. The trilogues are coming up under Czech presidency, and we will keep that in mind. It's a top priority as well to have the highest possible ambition there. As you know, repower in May added proposals, legal proposals on permitting, raised the 45% renewables target, and we are keeping a close eye also on EPBD, what's needed, and energy efficiency savings. So I can only underline the importance of that as well. Also, the same for infrastructure and cross-border. It was mentioned. A few days ago, we inaugurated a connection Poland-Slovakia, and in the end of September, there will be the Baltic interconnector from Poland to the Baltics country. So we are paying off what we worked on for the last 10 years with the PCIs and CEF funding. There are more and more interconnection in the gas market and electricity market, LNG terminals, and so on. But with the crisis, obviously, we need to look at bottlenecks and what needs to be further strengthened. But just to underline that a couple of these projects, which takes years and years to be, are ready right now in time for the winter, as the Baltic interconnector, as an example of all that. Coming back to the issue of prices, and as I said, Mrs. von der Leyen, our president, will outline that in more detail on the 14th of September, so in 2 weeks. We are working on emergency measures. We are well aware that the prices, as I said also before, are affecting vulnerable consumers, so we need to help them. Member states are already doing quite a lot, and we encourage them to do more, but there is not anymore, as I said, the issue of vulnerable but also middle-income household and industry. So we are looking, our current security of supply regulation covers protected customers. So we have something in place, what need to be done. We are looking at the issue of critical industry, which is not covered in the current security of supply regulation, and they're coming to see you and us. So we are looking, and member states are preparing energy-intensive industry. We met aluminium, fertilizers, and many more who are extremely struggling with the high energy prices, in addition to the vulnerable and other consumers. So we are looking in what is needed also for those critical consumers, which, as our security of supply regulation is not apt for a crisis we are in right now, so we need to look what we can amend, what we can add, and we are right now doing that as well. I don't come back on the issue of price caps because that is something we are looking at. The European Council asked us, so we are offering options. We will listening first to the Extraordinary Energy Council on the 7th of September, but then we will also come up also after the speech of Ms. von der Leyen and discussions with the European Parliament on what are the concrete options also for the reform of the market design, which the marginal prices. We know we are working, as I said, on more deployment of renewables. We need to integrate them and we need to reform our market design. We are well aware of that, but just to underline, it can't be overnight, but we are looking at all the options, even wider than we had maybe done when we started, looking at what we can do to avoid what the situation we are in. It's partly speculation, but it's also partly demand and supply. And we are working, as I said, on the supply side. And it's not only on third countries. We are looking, and REPowerEU mentioned domestic production. So this is also up then to the member states to look at domestic production, but also then imports from third country. When it comes to the energy mix and nuclear, this is something member states are looking at. We know this summer, and that has also aggravated the crisis we are in, there were a couple of factors which really made it even worse. So the nuclear situation in France, where half of the capacity is for different reasons in maintenance, there are coercion issues and others which France is tackling right now. There's the very dry summer, which has put a lot of problems on hydropower, certainly in Portugal and Spain and France and other parts of Europe. And that is in a situation we are already quite in, adding to the problems and the price situation we are. So we have to work on all that. Short-term temporary solutions member states are taking is looking at coal and other means, but we are committed medium and long term, and as you know, on, as I said before, on the European Green Deal, Fit for 55, and all the proposal we need to continue. I think I stop here. There were many more questions, I'm sure. Yes, there was one, and that was the last question. We are launching a campaign in September, together with our press department or DG Communication, on energy savings. I think we did already, together with the International Energy Agency, some 10 points plan to save gas and oil. We will continue that or upgrade that. Member states are already doing some, so we are collecting best practice. We can only encourage to do that. We will use social media and all that. And if you are very well placed to highlight that. I think it is a needed step in addition to all the other steps we need to take so we can achieve also issues, savings from behavioral and other measures. I stop here. I'm sure we will come back, and I would like to thank you all for all the interesting questions.
Thank you so much indeed, Madam Deputy Director General Wörsdörfer. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for answering to most of the questions and also giving us very important and relevant information. Of course, we'll all follow the initiative of European Commission. We'll look closely to the decisions of the Extraordinary Energy Ministers' Council of the next Friday, and we'll stay in close contact with our Commissioner and with DGNR. And once again, thank you for the very good dialogue and cooperation. And please understand the urgency and the need to maybe change a little bit some paradigms and see what are the solutions in order to help European citizens and industries. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dear colleagues, because many of you just joined the meeting, I would like once again to wish you a lot of success in your work. This autumn it is indeed a very challenging time, and ITRE committee will be